Welcome to the All Ambient podcast, where we dig into the creative process, hear untold stories, and explore the brilliant minds behind some of the finest ambient music out there. I'm your host, Mike Graff. I'm excited to be in this together with you. Let's get going. All right, welcome to the podcast, everybody. Again, my name is Mike Graff, and I make music as Dear Gravity. It is great to be here together with you. I am beyond excited for you to get the chance to hear from Andrew Robinson of Raphah today. Before we dig into that conversation, I want to say a huge thank you to All Ambient. That's all-ambient.com. What an incredible music licensing site for all things ambient and cinematic music. If you are a creator and you are tired of digging through catalogs that have a bunch of music that might not be the best fit for your project, for any project, All Ambient is absolutely the perfect licensing site for you. Every song that's on All Ambient has been expertly curated. There is nothing on the site that doesn't feel great. And even better is that there are curated song bundles that are all designed around an individual theme or feel that can fit your film, video, your project perfectly. It's absolutely a great solution to your music licensing needs. Go check it out at all-ambient.com. That's all-ambient.com. And if you use the promo code podcast25, you will save 25% on your order. That is a huge savings on an already great deal for some incredible music. And fun fact, when you license your music on a site like All Ambient, you can know that you are directly supporting the artists and allowing them to continue to make more and more music in the way that they do, so that you can continue to make great projects in the very way that you do. What a cool thing. Go check it out at all-ambient.com. My guest today is Andrew Robinson, who makes music as Raphah. Andrew is a great mind in the ambient music space. It was really fun to explore a bunch of different lanes with him and to get to hear his story of how traveling worldwide influenced a lot of his perspective and formative years in his creative journey. This is a great conversation. I'm really excited to share it with you. Without any further ado, here is Andrew Robinson of Raphah. My guest today, I really could not be more excited to be hanging out with Andrew Robinson from Raphah. Andrew, welcome to the All Ambient podcast. So glad you're here.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, really great to be here. I've been looking forward to this for ages. So yeah, great to finally get to chat to you.
Oh, well, the pleasure is all mine, and it certainly goes both ways. So really, really glad to have you. Man, you've got so much great music that I know we're going to get the chance to talk about. But Andrew, I would love, can I call you Andy, by the way? Like, my brother's name is Andrew. It feels so formal. I would love to. Can we go to Andy? Are we that close already?
Yeah, let's do that. Only my very close family and my mother call me Andrew, so go with Andy. That's fine. Man, so glad to have you. Really, really glad that we're doing this. Andy, I love to dig into your story a little bit. Again, we have so much ground to cover, but can we start at the beginning? Does that sound okay with you? Yeah, beginning's a good place to start.
Awesome. Yeah, well, it very much so. I would love to hear kind of where music began in your life, like kind of how you got started in it. If it was just, kind of an inkling of an idea, or if there was kind of a specific prominent moment where you knew that this was something you were going to be spending more time with. Tell me your story. I want to hear a little bit about this.
Yeah, so music's been in my life pretty much since the year dot. My mum and dad always listened to loads of music. They weren't massively musical themselves. My dad played a bit of trumpet by ear. He was in the army band. My mum played a bit of piano and a bit of guitar. But we always had music playing in the house. And so as far as I can remember, I've always sung. I think I could sing from the moment I could talk.
Yeah.
So that's always just been part of who I am, and really enjoyed singing and music. And then growing up in church was really a big influence in terms of music. My parents were both missionaries and then church leaders. So we moved around a bit in my early years, experienced lots of different cultures, different types of music. And I think that was, although I didn't realize it, quite formative. But it wasn't until I think I was about 8 years old. We'd only just moved to the UK. I was born in South Africa. Originally, Mum bought me some piano lessons. Yeah. And so from about the age of 8, I learnt piano. And then I started playing the flute. I was in church bands and choirs and orchestras and things in school. So I was always doing music. But at that young age, it was more something I did rather than something I loved. It was just another thing like sport and school and everything else. And so that was great and a good foundation for me. But it wasn't really until I was about 15, I think. And I was kind of bored of playing piano and bored of playing in classical orchestras and singing in choirs. And I thought, this is not very cool for a 15-year-old boy. I don't want to play the flute. So I kind of ditched those. And my mum had this old...
That's such a measuring stick for 15-year-olds, right? Like, how cool is this? Is it cool?
Yeah, it was like a watershed moment. And I was really into like rock bands. I grew up in the Britpop era with Oasis and Blur and all those kind of indie rock bands. And that was kind of my thing. And I thought, I really want to learn to play the guitar. My mum had this old classical guitar sitting in the corner of the living room. One day I just picked it up and I thought, oh, I'll teach myself a few chords. So I did. I learned 3 chords and that pretty much covered most pop songs. And from there, I discovered the joy of being able to sing and play guitar at the same time. And that was kind of sent me on a different trajectory where I really got into guitar. Then I was in a couple of bands at school. I started leading lots of worship in church. And that's really where my love of music started, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then I went away to university. I studied physiotherapy, in fact, nothing to do with music. And again, I was in a couple of bands and played in different churches. After my degree, I decided I wanted to take music more seriously. I thought this could potentially be something that I do, if not full-time, at least part-time, and I wanted to develop my skills. And so I went to a music college for a year, and that was incredible. So that for that whole year, I just lived, slept and breathed music and guitar and studied sort of theology and worship alongside it. And that was it for me. I was like, I'm going to do music. That's it. That's my life. I want to find some way of making a living from music. But as anyone that's in music knows, it's not that easy. And so I ended up having to get a job. But all the time, continued to play in a band. And I was in a band and we wrote our own stuff and we did some gigs around London and all sorts of things. Had a great time. And then my life sort of took a different turn. My dad had recently died. I wasn't in a particularly great place. So I left the job I was in doing physiotherapy and I joined the police, of all things, because I needed a job and that looked like a decent thing to do. So that was a bit of a tangential move, but I was about 24 at that stage.
My goodness.
And that was all fairly all-consuming. It's a pretty intense job, and that kind of consumed me for quite a few years. So music took a bit of a back seat. I met my wife in that intervening time and we started a family, which is all great. But music sort of was something I did as and when I could, which wasn't very much, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then a few years after that, when the kids started to get a bit older, I was playing a lot in churches again and really started to write my own music. I'd always written a little bit of my own stuff, mostly singer-songwriter type things, because I love to sing, I love to play, and I love to construct songs. And that's what I always wanted to do. So ended up writing loads of songs and recording some and thinking, well, maybe this is a way that I can start to get back into music.
Yeah.
Wrote loads of things and absolutely nothing happened. I released a load of stuff, recorded an EP, and it just fell into a big void of nothingness and no one apart from my family listens. It was one of those things
thank
that
them
I
for
thought
listening though, man. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Nevertheless, hugely enjoyed it. It was a great way to release stress and express myself and kind of use the gifts I've been given, which kind of brings us up to 3 or 4 years ago. And I'd moved my job. I was working down in London and having a particularly stressful time with various things. But I had quite a long commute to and from work on the train. I had, an hour each way sitting on the train. And as a way to relax and chill out, I would listen to ambient music. I just thought this is nice, good way to chill out, let my mind, wander and find some peace and calm in the noise and chaos of London and commuting to work.
Yeah.
And then I thought, this is really cool music. I might try and write some of this as a way to relax and unwind. So this must have been, I think it was the end of 2019. I wrote a couple of tracks. They were terrible. You can still hear them on Spotify if you want.
Man, you were brave for keeping them up there. Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I have toyed with that idea. And every now and again, I think, I'm going to take them down. I don't like them. But then I think, no, they're part of my journey. They're part of who I am.
Yep.
And it helps me to see how much progress I've made. So
that's great. I love that. Yeah.
I wrote it all on the train. I had my MacBook and I had a tiny little MIDI keyboard, and I sat there and I wrote stuff just with Logic and stock plugins, stock sounds. Some of it sounds quite childish now when I listen back to it. But it was, that was part of my journey.
We all start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Stuck them on Spotify, nothing happened. And then the next year I wrote a few more. And at one point, one of the tracks, I thought, I'm just going to submit this to some playlists. And I'd used Submit Hub before, which I'd nicknamed Rejection Hub because nothing ever happened for me there. But I thought, I'll send them off onto Submit Hub, see what happens.
I haven't heard that one before. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But anyway, this track, Hidden Valley, got picked up by a couple of reasonably sized playlists. And I actually generated some plays. And I thought, wow, this is cool. I'm going to write some more. And so I did. And over the course of the next year, I wrote loads of tracks. I committed myself to writing a track every 2 weeks and releasing it just to see what would happen. And it just snowballed as I got more plays and more listens, more people liked it, the more encouraged I got. And the more I thought, actually, not only do I really enjoy this, it's actually something that other people are enjoying. Yeah. So that's where the name Raphah came from, which comes from the Hebrew phrase to be still. And I thought that's just the perfect name for what I'm trying to do, is to not just help myself to find that peace and calm and quiet, but help other people to do it. And that's what it's done. And that's kind of where Raphah's gone, and it's just grown and grown and grown, much to my utter astonishment. And the best part about the whole thing, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit more, is the incredible people I've got to meet along the way. Collaborations, other musicians, and the ambient community is just an awesome place to be.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, it is. It's just communal vibe. Everyone is there to support everyone. And I mean, like the two of us, there is no scarcity mentality or anything like that coming into it. And like, oh, we got to position ourselves to try to edge out. Like it really is a family, and it just continues to grow and grow. And yeah, I hear you there. Like, just to kind of pick up where you left that off, Andy, I love the stuff that you've been putting out. And like you said, there is just such a wide range, not just the tracks that you're releasing as yourself, but with the collabs that you've been able to put out there. And honestly, over the past, it was 2019 or so when the stuff first started getting published, right? Does that sound right?
Yeah, it was 2019 I released the first couple of tracks. But it was really the end of 2020, I think it started to take off.
That's when when the hockey stick growth began. Yeah. Just straight up. That's that. But with that, you have managed to put a lot of really great material out there. Like, you certainly don't have a sparse discography, is what I'm trying to say. And that shows a lot of your spirit. And I think that also shows a lot of sheer transparency and willingness to be like, hey, here it is. Here's yet another thing that I'm working on. And I think that's a great model for a lot of people to release. And to anyone who argues that one needs to release less, I think that there's just as much of an argument to release more and to continue to publish. And it is so much more than you kind of caught me on an interesting day. I've been processing a lot of stuff right now. And just the idea of how do I position this release so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle or that it doesn't blend in with something else that's coming out. And really, for me, like, I'm starting to get to the place where that just sucks almost all of the joy out of the whole thing. Like, what do I actually want to do with this? Or what is the genesis behind why this piece of music needs to, or maybe doesn't need to, head out into the world right now? So tell me a little bit about your approach in releasing all the stuff that you are. Are you intentionally running after building up a big catalog, or has that simply just been the byproduct of you staying faithful to it and it just happens to add up really quickly over time? Or talk me through that a little bit.
That's a really good question. And
there is no wrong answer, by the way.
I don't really have a set strategy, partly because the rest of my life is so busy. I have a full-time job. I have 3 kids. I'm doing a master's degree. There's so much going on in life that music, I just have to squeeze in as and when I can. If I could release more, I would release more. In fact, I was listening to the interview you had with Daniel from Kilometer Club, and he is just prolific. If I could release as much as him, I would.
Oh, man.
And I've got,
you guys are setting some great bars, though. Those are good measuring sticks.
I'm limited really only by the amount of time I have to put music out. And I think like a lot of creatives, I have more ideas than I have time to actually run with. So I don't hold on to a lot of music. I tend to, once something's done, I try and get it out and share it with the world. And I think as much as you plan and strategize for releases as a musician, you can think, right, I've written a track, this is going to be a winner. People are going to love this. It's going to get playlisted. It's going to get some traction, and it might just absolutely fall off a cliff. And other ones, you might do a really quick recording, throw something out and think that'll just disappear. And yet someone picks it up, it gets popular, and it just goes huge. And so there isn't necessarily a formula. And I think if you could find a formula, you'd be a very rich person. So I just try and release.
Rich in one category. Maybe not all the categories that matter, but
I just try and release what is on my heart to release. So if I have an idea for a project, I'll try and record it and put it out and stay true to what moves me. I think it's tempting also to sometimes try and chase after what you think other people are going to like listening to, or try and write for a specific playlist or a specific category. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. And I think, writing for commission and all that stuff has its place. But for me, I want to write what moves me. And that's my test. Before I release something, I'll normally finish it, leave it a day or two, and come back to it and listen to it as if this is the first time I've heard it. And my test for is it ready is, has it moved me? Has it grabbed me emotionally? Do I like it, basically? And if I like it, I'll put it out. Because I think that's quite a good test. And I think that can shine through in the music. If people are listening, there's some authenticity there.
Absolutely. That's a great litmus test for sure. And I think that's one that, we can all take a note from. Man, before we get to, because I do want to talk about just what the average day, the average week looks like for you with the full-time job, with the children, with the, like pursuing a master's degree. Side note, I kind of chuckled that I audibly responded to you saying that you're pursuing a master's degree. I was like, And I was like, man, I just made that sound like that having 3 kids and a full-time job was like less of an effort from our time than pursuing. Like it made me kind of chuckle. I was like, oh man, no. We're in the same boat. We've got the, with my 3 kids, it is a wild journey to get anything done some days. But I really do want to dig into how you do get stuff done and what that schedule looks like. But before we get there, before we get too far away from your origin story, I want to talk about what it was like to be a missionary family. I think that is just something really unique about your story, and would love to hear more details on it. You said you moved around a lot. I heard born in South Africa, which is incredible. And then when you arrived in the UK at age 8, did you then get sent out again as missionaries from there? Or was that like the moment that you sort of planted in the UK and stayed?
I mean, I was only young at the time. So when I left South Africa, I was 5. Prior to that, we traveled around South Africa a lot with my parents. We basically lived in a caravan for 6 months, touring around. We went to live in Portugal for a year, and my parents did training and various other things. And then we were supposed to go to Turkey. That was where my parents were kind of headed for. We came to England as a sort of 6-week holiday, a bit of a break before we went out to Turkey. And I don't know all the details, but for some reason, things went wrong with the organization that they were with. And my parents ended up resigning. It just wasn't in the plan. And we ended up basically getting stuck in England. So the plan was never to come here. Okay. But it's a funny way that things sometimes work out. And ended up growing up in England from the age of 8. So we didn't move around as much as we'd intended to, but clearly ended up here. And this is what I now call home, despite lots of families still living out in South Africa. Oh man, well, thank you for sharing that. And I can only imagine, I mean, such formative years that you spent, I mean, literally like traveling the world in some really not just unique cultures, but some very diverse ones. And to be able to, I know you said it earlier, but how formative the exposure to those different cultures and the different creative ways that they approach life, that they, approach art and all those things. I can only imagine whether it is very, very conscious or very buried deep down subconscious, that there is unique thumbprint on you with all of those unique experiences that will forever influence your approach to what you do. And that's just such a wonderful thing. I absolutely love that. It's something I'd like to do, is to bring kind of a more of an African influence into some of my ambient music. I've not gone there yet, but it's one of the ideas I've got, is to bring a bit of an African theme into it as well. So that'd be a cool idea.
Let's go. Let's go. Oh man, let's break down some more genre boundaries and keep on journeying in that. That's really special. So, Andy, let's dig into what the life of being an artist, composer, producer, musician looks like with a full-time job with 3 kids. And remind me your kids' age. You said 14, 12, and 8? Is that?
8.
There you go, man. Fun ages, busy ages. What is your full-time job, by the way? Just curious.
So I now work in cybersecurity. I work in cybersecurity now in London.
You are a virtual police. Yeah,
more or less. It's again another sort of tangential move. I spent 15 years in uniform policing.
Yep.
And had enough of that. Decided it was time for a change, so I've moved into this area of work, which I'm very much enjoying. It also affords me the opportunity to work from home a bit more, have a bit more flexibility around work-life balance and fitting everything else in. So yeah, it's
absolutely,
it's good.
So then with that, what does a typical week look like for you? Like, do you have kind of set times that you are putting in your time on music production, or is it more of the, depending on how busy work is, depending on how busy the family is, or your studies for your master's degree, it's just whatever time is left, or how does that all get balanced for you?
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely a balancing act, and trying to fit everything in is a challenge. As much as I would like to have set time for music, I just have to fit it in where I can. So like over Christmas, I had some downtime. I was able to spend some time locked away in my little studio here, making some music.
Yeah.
Some weeks I will hardly touch it at all. Some weeks I manage to carve out a few hours here and there.
Yeah.
So I have to be fairly quick with my creative process. I can't spend ages dwelling on things and tweaking them to the nth degree, which is probably a good thing, because sometimes I think you can overdo the creative process and you can question yourself, and you can do so many revisions and bounces and mixes that you can't see the wood for the trees. So in some ways, those restrictions help me to be creative and force me to get things out and get them ready. But yeah, it's very much every week is different. And my kids are now of the age where they're a little bit more independent. So I can take some time out to come and hide in my studio. I just have to be wary that my wife will sometimes be tearing her hair out and requiring my help. So I sometimes have to down tools and go and be a dad and not just disappear into my little man cave. I used to do a lot more, when I started, I was doing almost all my composing on the train, which has some advantages, but with a tiny little keyboard and a tiny little screen,
you were
cramped on a train is not always the most conducive environment for creating. So now I've got a much better studio setup.
Yeah, there can be something to the fences that we put around the creative process that can actually spur us into action, though. And I think that's, the limits of, okay, I have my laptop, I have my MIDI controller, I have however much battery, on my on my laptop or whatever, or here's the length of the train ride. We got to get some stuff done. I mean, there can be a real mental, the way that can spur your mental and emotional state into a place of productivity can be a really healthy thing for a lot of people, because when the doors are wide open, sometimes nothing happens because there's no constraint to it. But putting that constraint on it can actually yield some, and clearly in your case, it has yielded some really great and catalytic results that then, lead to the next stage and to the next stage and the next stage. So I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And collaborating helps in that process as well, because if you're working on a project with someone else, it adds that element of not pressure, but expectation that they want something from you, you want something from them, so you're working on it together, and you don't want to let them down by sitting on it for 6 months. So it gives you that extra impetus to create.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. With all the stuff that you're releasing, Andy, because again, there's just so much of it. Is there anything that you're establishing thematically? Like, are you really finding yourself, because even hearing your Britpop influence, from the day, and I got to experience that same wave, but on the other side of the pond. So I almost felt like I was more of an onlooker of Oasis and Blur and Oasis, the influence and all that, but to be right in the thick of it, I mean, what an opportunity. And that's so great. But for things to really accelerate musically in your life when you picked up that guitar and learned those 3 chords and all that, Do you feel like that there is a guitar-ish plumb line that runs through your stuff, or are you more of just, following the muse wherever it happens to lead in the ambient world, or what does that look like for you?
Funnily enough, although guitar is my main instrument, it features very little in my music.
Yeah.
Although increasingly I'm trying to use it more. And that was just out of necessity because, again, writing things on a train doesn't
hard
lend
to bring
itself
that amp on a train,
to taking a guitar. So
you're hitting,
that was almost
somebody in the head at all times.
Yeah.
And
Whoops, sorry about that. So just by necessity, most of my music started and has continued to be keyboard based, which is why I'm so grateful that I learned the piano all those years ago, because it's given me that foundation. I by no means a virtuoso on the piano, but I've got enough skill and knowledge to construct things, and I use my knowledge of guitar on the keyboard. So that tends to be where I veer, is a MIDI controller, synths and things like that. I want to bring in more guitar, and I have been recently. But thematically, I tend to just go where the wind takes me, whatever I feel is going to be a good track, whether that be a single, whether that be an EP project. I started out mostly using nature as an inspiration. So I would, if you see my early stuff, it's mostly around nature, and I'd use samples and I'd use field recordings, and I still do that. But I've sort of branched out. So, I mean, some ambient composers very much focus on the sort of drone ambient side. Some are more nature-based, some are more compositional. I think I've got a mix of all those. I enjoy doing all the different styles. In fact, I didn't know there were different styles before I started doing ambient. I didn't even really know what ambient was. So to discover genres in the genre has been amazing. And I like using all of them. So I'm always keen to push the boundaries, and I'm using more and more guitar. I'm trying to come up with new ways of sampling sounds and actually sound design a bit more. Yeah. And in fact, I'm using acoustic guitar a little bit more as well now. And we've got a piano next door that my son has been learning on. So I've been using that and sampling that as well. Yeah. So I don't have a specific sort of theme. I just go where the music takes me.
Well, and what a great place to go, right? Just following it piece by piece. That's great. I love it. Well, Andy, we do have something exciting to talk about. You have a new EP coming out with Echoes Blue in just at time of recording. It has yet to arrive, but once this episode airs, it will either be right around the corner or just released into the world, and we get to celebrate it either way. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk about what's happening here. So Foundations, correct?
Yeah, Foundations. That's the title of the EP. Yeah, really excited about this one.
Tell me more, please, by all means. I want to hear kind of the theme and just how even, going with a release on Echoes Blue, like how that sort of influenced, again, like you were saying, the genres within the genres or whatnot. What's the vibe of the project? I'm really excited to hear more about this. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite a compositional EP. In fact, the backstory to this one is Kirk from We Dream of Eden, who I'm also working on a project with currently, which is really exciting.
He's a good guy.
He put out his online course for people that wanted to get into ambient music, and I thought, that looks really good. Just as an aside, actually, when I first started getting into ambient, you and Kirk and Ben with Salt of the Sound and Antarctic Wastelands were the guys I went to listen to when I first discovered this whole world of ambient. So now to be talking to you and writing an EP with Kirk and releasing an EP on Echoes Blue with Ben is just awesome. Just,
that's
that journey has been amazing.
I love that.
So yeah, that's just an aside. Back to the EP. Yeah, so I did Kirk's course, picked up some tips. It was great to see his creative process.
Right.
And on the back of that, I wrote an EP. Yeah. And so it's very much compositional. And I sent it over to Ben, who said, yeah, great, love it. We'd love to run with it on Echoes Blue, which was great. And so the title is Foundations, and it's based upon a passage in the Bible. And you'll find if you listen to my music that my faith plays quite a big influence in the music that I write about foundations. So what the foundation is to our life, what we build our life upon. In my case, my faith in God, my Christian beliefs. And so that's where the inspiration comes from for the titles and the theme. So yeah, that's out beginning of February. I've got a couple of singles out in February, and then the main EP comes out in March. So
Incredible.
Yeah, really excited for that one.
Oh, can't wait to sit with it. Can't wait to just marinate in it and meditate with it. Like, yeah, I'm really excited for that one. And just following in line with just kind of the arc of all of your approach to what you do, not just creatively, but just where your heart is centered in that. I think that plays a big part in what's happening. So yeah, I'm really excited to listen and dig in. It's going to be great. So talk me through a random question that came to mind. What does Raphah look like 5 years from now? Is that something that you are intent on trying to figure out? Or are you like, man, this is just a ride. I am going to take it one day at a time and we'll see what happens? Or what is the overall trajectory, or not lack of trajectory? That'd be a bad way to put it, because that implies that you're not intentionally doing stuff, but whether it's a trajectory versus just a step-by-step process. Yeah. What does the future of Raphah look like for you?
Good question. Up until now, in fact, probably up until the middle to end of last year, it was very much, I'm just riding this wave. I'm really excited this is happening. I'm excited that people are listening to the music. I'm excited to be able to create it. But in terms of long-term direction, hadn't given it any real thought.
Yeah.
And then around Christmas, I was kind of doing a projection into 2024. What do I want to achieve with Raphah? What I'm really keen to do is build more of a community around it, and the music and the people that love it and the people that are able to benefit from it. And so a bit like all the artists that I've met and all the friends I've made, I want that to extend to people that love the music as well. And so I want to try and create more of a community where people can experience more of the heart behind the music. So I'm in the process of trying to set up a community-based page where people can join, have behind the scenes chats, videos, unreleased music, and really get to know me and me get to know them. So, I mean, releasing stuff online on Spotify and all the other platforms is brilliant, but you don't know the people that are listening to it. And I never will, because they're now in the, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, which is just, blows my mind every single day. I really want to create more of a community where people can come on the journey with me and see where it goes from there. I want to keep making more music. I don't foresee, certainly in the near future, me being in a position to quit my job and go full time.
Sure.
As amazing as that would be. And so again, it has to fit around my life, but I want to keep doing as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Not so much. It's easy to get caught up in numbers and streams and chasing targets and all this stuff. But I don't ever want to lose sight of why I'm doing it and the enjoyment of doing it. So if I can still be doing that in 5 years' time, regardless of how many people are listening, regardless of anything else that surrounds it, if I'm still enjoying it and other people are, that's my goal. And the rest is kind of an added bonus.
Right. Man, that's why I appreciate that response a lot. And I think it says everything about you and about your heart and your focus. And there is something to say for, there can be a certain metric that we put out there and that says like, hey, once I hit this many streams, I'm going to do this, with all, like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to do this full time, or when this amount of, royalties come in from licensing or whatever. Those aren't bad conversations to have with yourself, or just to kind of familiarize yourself with the numbers. But you kind of mentioned it, and I've been processing on this a lot recently, just the idea of, like, metrics are cute. Metrics it's good to have numbers per se, but I think we as humans are really quick to believe stories that come along with those metrics, whether it's a positive leaning story with a metric that's going this direction, going up, or a negative story with a metric that happens to be going down. And neither of those are true, really, because if the entirety of our artistry and our, really obedience to release into the world what we've been called to do, if that is only measured by how many streams or licenses or whatever, if that is the single measuring stick, man, we've really, really missed the boat on it. Or if it's, the number of releases that you have come out in a year, and it's like, oh, okay, I nailed my 20-year. Oh, I didn't quite, release as many songs or as many publications as I wanted to. that can be something that begins to eat at us in a way that I think probably causes detriment to the art. And not only does it cause detriment to that, but it's also just not true. Like, there are so many other things and all the intangibles, all that, like coming from a place of faith, all these intangibles where like I'm participating in something bigger than myself, right? Like I'm running after something that does involve my obedience, but I'm not on the hook for the results in the process. So for me to boldly create, but to not start placing my self-worth on how certain numbers do, that's just such a great thing for us to remind ourselves of. And within that, if for those who feel like going full-time or the lack of full-time is just such a weird term because there are so many people who are not, quote, full-time, who are more prolific than plenty of artists who do not do anything else besides make music. So that's just even a silly metric right there. But even the idea of this is the only thing I do with my time, I think that can inappropriately mess with how some people see their art or see the value of it. And I just want to encourage you in the sense that you are being obedient to what you've been called to, and it shows. And again, like you're releasing more stuff than some people who've been focusing on their craft and single-handedly full-time focusing on their craft for years, who yet to release as much as you have. And again, like not that it's even about the amount, but I'll get off my pulpit or my soapbox or whatever. But I just want to encourage you, Andy, in the journey, the ability to stay faithful to the day to day and to say yes when you're supposed to say yes. That is the calling. And I see how that has gone for you so far. And I can't wait to see what that looks like for you in the next year, the next 5 years, and everything beyond that. So yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. And I think just to continue what you were saying there, focusing on numbers and figures and stats is a house of cards anyway, because as quickly as you can rise with your streams, you can fall with those streams, and it can all be taken away in an instant. You fall off a couple of big playlists and it's good night. So if you have a loyal group of people that love not just your music, but who you are and why you're making it, it goes so much further, I think, than just chucking it out there into the world, into the big abyss that is Spotify.
Yes, 100% yes. Man, Andy, I've really enjoyed our time together. Before we go, though, I'd love to, you probably know what's coming, but I would love to come at you with the all ambient lightning round. Would you be up for the all ambient lightning round?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Awesome. Can't wait. This is fun stuff. And again, if your answer gets a little beyond, what one would think of as a lightning round answer, that's fine. I'm more interested in just hearing the very first thing that comes to mind. And if it's a 2-second answer or a 20-second or a 20-minute, whatever it looks like, I just want to hear the first thing that comes off the top of your head. But let's dig in. It's going to be fun. Andy, what are you geeking out about right now? Is there some new music release or some instrument or piece of gear or plugin or something that you are geeking out about right now?
I really love free plugins or stock plugins because I don't like spending a fortune on tech. And so the thing that I'm really enjoying at the moment is sample alchemy on Logic. It's something that's new to me and was within the last update with Logic. And it's a fairly simple but powerful tool. And I'm really enjoying chucking sounds into there, samples, and playing around them and stretching them, repeating them, and seeing what weird and wonderful sounds I can come up with. Something I've been digging into a lot more the last few months is making my own sounds. And it's so satisfying because you can spend hours searching through banks and databases of patches and presets. But to create something of your own is really satisfying, particularly if you've got a particular sound in your head and you think, right, that's what I'm aiming for. And you can take something and then create it and it comes out the other end. So yeah, really enjoying that. And then
I love that.
If I can have two, I don't know if that's cheating. I've rediscovered my favorite instrument, which is my Taylor acoustic guitar. I've had it for 20 odd years. I love it. And I've recently been trying to introduce that into my ambient. So I managed to create a pad out of my acoustic guitar, which was really cool. Really enjoyed doing that.
Amazing. So, what Taylor do you have? I've got a couple 20-plus-year-old Taylors myself.
I've got a 714 CE, which I bought in New York about 20 years ago. It's amazing. I love it. And it gets better with age as well.
Andy, what is one weird thing about you that most people do not already know?
2 years ago, I took up beekeeping. So I'm a beekeeper. Yep. So I have six beehives that I tend to and
For
extract
real?
honey and
On your property?
No, there's a farm nearby.
Okay.
With a dog and kids, that wouldn't work. So yeah, there's a farm nearby where I keep the hives, and it's really good fun.
That's wild. How much honey do 6 hives of bees produce on a
So this summer just gone, I had about 90 to 100 bottles. So what's that? About 90 to 100 pounds.
For real?
Honey.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, a decent amount. And it's delicious.
That is no joke. Those are busy bees.
It's proper honey. When you've tasted this, you'll never have fake honey ever again.
I have no doubt that is 100% true. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild. Beekeeper Andy. I love it. That's awesome. Man, maybe you should sample some bee buzzes into the.
Funny you say that. I have done. I've got some recordings, and I'm trying to figure out how to get them into an ambient track. The problem is it's quite a harsh, like distorted,
it is
aggressive sound. So I'm not quite sure what to do with it.
That's funny.
So yeah, I'm working on that one.
That's really funny. Andy, you can be controversial with this. You can be lighthearted with this, whatever you want to do. What is something that you believe that almost nobody else agrees with you on?
I really like the beach when it's cold and wet and windy, which I think most people would disagree with. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like it when it's sunny.
When it's cold and windy and wet, and
exactly.
That's kind of nice.
So it's a nice quiet place, but also it's a lot more dramatic and evocative. So
Wow. Do you live pretty close to water? Do you get to the beach fairly often?
No, unfortunately not. So we're right in the middle of England. So we're about 2 hours from the nearest coastline.
Okay.
I would love to live next to the sea. That's my heart's desire. So maybe when I'm retired and the kids have left home, we'll move to the seaside, but not for the moment.
Well, it also makes it all the more special when you do go, if you're a ways from it. I mean, my family lives up in basically the most northern part of the USA, where if you take a wrong turn and drive a few hours north, you're in Canada. So that's where we are. But it certainly does make a tropical vacation all the much more desirable, because we see so very little of it where we are. That you dream of palm trees, and we love getting to some palm trees. So maybe there is something kind of poetic and beautiful about the drama of the beach being just a little ways away. So who knows? Yeah. Cool. Andy, last lightning round question for you. What advice would you have for somebody who sees what you do, who listens to what you do, they love it, and they are ready to follow in your footsteps? What advice would you give somebody who wants to do what you do?
I think there's 2 things. The first is be consistent. So whatever that is, whether it's practice, whether it's developing your musical ear, whether it's enjoying music, whether it's developing relationships with people that like music, be consistent with it, because that will pay dividends. And it may seem like you're banging your head against a brick wall. And I certainly felt like that for years with my songwriting, that no one listens, no one cares, it's not achieving anything. But even through that process, enjoy that process, because that is formative and you don't know what's around the corner. So if you're consistent and you keep at it, you may never be a global rock star, but if you follow your heart and if you do what you enjoy and stay true to yourself and writing and enjoying composing the music that you like, then that will shine through, as I alluded to earlier. And people will start to attach themselves to that. They'll see the value in that. So I think that would probably be the main message.
I love that. And I hope that is I know that it's going to be an encouragement to all those out there. And thank you for modeling it well, man. Thank you for leading well in what you do. And I love not only where you're currently at and the stuff that you're making, but I can't wait to see what's coming next. Not just Foundations, which is going to be lovely. I encourage everyone to go take a listen to it. But even beyond that, just thank you for being faithful to it. Thank you for being obedient with it. And here's to everything that is to come. It's going to be great.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Just before we end, if I could just mention another project that's up and coming.
Please do.
One that I'm really excited about.
You've got so many, man. We got to carve another probably 10 minutes out, because you're the man who's releasing everything. It's so great.
So aside from the Raphah music and the collabs I'm working on, I've really, for the last few years, since I started Raphah, wanted to record ambient hymns. I love old hymns. I think there's such rich melodies and so much heritage within them. So I've started a new project called Ambient Hymns, which is launching next month. And I'm going to be releasing an ambient style hymn every 2 weeks for as long as I can sustain that. And there's plenty of hymns to do that with. So look out for that one.
Oh, can't wait. Ambient. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully that is another blessing to people and helps people to engage with the old hymns through an ambient style. So look it up it's on Instagram, and I've got a Bandcamp page in the making. Yeah. Looking forward to that one.
Perfect. Man, can't wait to tune into that. Annie, man, for Raphah, for Ambient, for everything else that you're up to, thank you so much for slicing some time out of the time that you're spending with family and, at your job and working on your master's degree and also with all of your incredible work in the music world. Thanks for taking some time to hang with the All Ambient podcast today. Means the world. Thrilled that you got to be on.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I've really enjoyed it, and it's just a shame we can't do it for longer or for more regularly. But I'm sure we'll get another chance at some point.
Let's do a part two.
Yeah, let's do it.
Amazing. Thanks for coming, man.
Cheers, Mike.
Thank you again for listening to the All Ambient podcast. Music throughout today's episode was from the EP Foundations by Raphah. And you can find all of this music along with a bunch of other incredible songs, bundles, and other resources from an amazing group of composers and producers at all-ambient.com. And be sure to use the promo code podcast25. That's podcast25. And you'll get 25% off of any product at all-ambient.com. It's a great opportunity to save even more on an incredible resource for your next film, video, or project. Don't wait for another second. Head over to allambient.com and use promo code podcast25. Again, that's podcast25 to get 25% off of your next purchase. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so you can catch every conversation we have with all these incredible people who share the same passion. I'm looking forward to the next time. I hope that you are too. Can't wait to see you then. And until then, have an incredible day. Here's hoping that this music and the heart behind it makes your day and life that much better. See you next time.